ESPN has been the flagship of our sport for a long, long time in so many ways. That ownership of the sport has been challenged over the past couple of years by the Big Ten's deal with Fox, first and foremost, and then, of course, the entire NFL-style deal that the Big Ten Conference has forged with Fox, NBC, and CBS. Just that exposure and the money involved and the brands involved struck a blow against ESPN. ESPN's fighting back, and ESPN strikes a blow, a counterpunch, that may or may not be a true counterpunch, because if you read the tea leaves of where the sport is headed, maybe it's just within the flow of where we're going, as of course the SEC and the Big Ten announced its advisory committee last week, and now ESPN has announced that it has struck a contract extension with the college football playoff for another 6 years. Let's get to the story as written in The Athletic. ESPN and the college football playoff are in agreement on a 6-year, $7.8 billion extension that will make the network the home of the 12-team tournament through the 2031 season. That, of course, meaning the 2032 championship played that January. Once CFP leaders sort out the specifics of how the postseason's new era will operate, sources briefed on the deal told The Athletic. The full contract's completion is still contingent on CFP leaders finalizing details of the expanded format in the wake of the implosion of the Pac-12. The CFP's management committee and board of managers have meetings scheduled for next week and continue to work through the complicated process of settling their outstanding issues. The ESPN deal will not be ratified until the commissioners and presidents vote on the structure and financials of the expanded CFP. ESPN Senior Vice President of Communications, Josh Krulowitz, and College Football Playoff Committee Executive Director Bill Hancock both declined to comment. ESPN has 2 years remaining on its current deal, which carries an average payment of $608 million per year, includes the CFP semifinals and championship, plus the 4 New Year's 6 bowl games. So that's 4 and then 3 in the playoffs. That's 7 games, $608 million. We've got $89 million per game ESPN is currently paying. The 6-year extension will cost $1.3 billion per year. So that involves 11 games. If we're just looking at the playoffs, 11 games with the 12-team playoff, that's $1.3 billion per year. That's about $110 million per. And so the contract is going to go from $89 to $110 million, cost of inflation, generally. Over the final 2 years of its current agreement, ESPN holds the rights to the new set of first-round games held at on-campus sites, in addition to the quarterfinals, semifinals, and championship games. It is not yet known what the fee of the first-round games will be for the next 2 seasons. The quarterfinals will be played at the current New Year's 6 bowls, whose rights were already owned by ESPN. The percentage increase in rights fees from the current deal to the extension will be closer than the $608 million to the $1.3 billion jump appears now, as the current contract's average fails to include the pricing for the on-campus first-round games. Okay, over the course of the contract, ESPN will have the ability to sub-license games. Consumer, meaning another network or digital player could air playoff games, but it would be at Disney-owned ESPN's discretion, meaning streaming possibilities. The deal would give ESPN control over nearly all Division I college sports championships outside of the men's basketball tournament, CBS and its sister platforms. We don't care about that here. The CFP's current contract with ESPN is set to run through the 2025 season. So this fall, 2024, and then the next playoff, 2025, is under the current contract, and any other major changes to its terms require unanimous support. After a 4-person subcommittee recommended the new 12-team format in June of 21, it took more than 2 years of stop-and-start negotiations, and then, of course, mid-conference realignment to get the unanimous approval from the CFP Board of Managers, the group of presidents and chancellors who oversee the organization. And we know with the current format, looks like as of 2024 going forward. And again, the Pac-12 situation is going to have to be dealt with somewhat tweaked. It's basically going to be the same model because we've got 4 conference champions now to deal with, receiving 4 byes. They're going to be the 4 top seeds. And now we've got a model of 5 conference champions and 7 at-large bids that includes a group of 5 for sure. Just got done taping Michigan Podcast with Steve Deace. So first and foremost, I want to thank Steve for alerting me to this story. It might have been a while before I caught up with it. Other things going on today in my life. So that's number one. Number two, Steve brings up a great point. So instead of this looking like on the surface where it's ESPN striking a blow against the Big Ten and its media rivals, with the Big Ten and the SEC joining forces, and I know it's a loose, vague type of agreement at this point, but it means something. It's not like the alliance we saw with the Pac-12 and the ACC recently. This means something between the SEC and the Big Ten. What they stated in that agreement, that preliminary agreement, means something. If you read between the lines, check out the video we posted last week. We went through it. It's meaningful. Okay. So the Big Ten may once again be connected to ESPN through the SEC, and the SEC and the Big Ten basically running the sport eventually. It may not take that long. Your thoughts about the media rights deal? We will dive into this further as we go. We're, of course, going to dive into the playoff and how this all plays out. We did some preliminary numbers breakdown right now in terms of what it's going to cost ESPN in the future versus what they're paying right now. It's pretty easy to see that they're just basically paying for a higher end game, of course, playoff games, versus what are now New Year's Six bowl games that are somewhat meaningless. And then, of course, there's inflation. Your thoughts down below right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. We will continue to keep an eye on it, and you stay tuned, and we'll see you soon.